Hello, I'm Stephen Watson here with our co-host Barely Bear, who's kind of barely there in the shot. Maybe that's a little bit better. He's perched atop a tissue box, which perhaps we'll need during this video. But this video is intended to be an incomplete but sincere thank you to all those professional members of the healthcare community who have taken care of me on this journey, which started, I guess, September or something like that, with my first doctor's visit. Last year, maybe the end of August, I don't quite remember, somewhere in there. And the experience that I was aware of, the interoceptive experience, probably began 2 or 3 months before that. So anyway, many people have helped me in many ways, donating money, signing up on Patreon, enrolling in class, buying a gift certificate for somebody, bringing meals by or drinks by, or offering to grocery shop for me, helping us move, helping us set up in the new house, donating plants and building a garden, offering advice and rides, cards and notes and gifts and all that kind of stuff. And that's all still needed and appreciated. But this is a thank you particularly to the healthcare professionals, most of whom, I haven't met. Most of them are support staff, and they're a pharmacist in another room or another building. They're, a teacher in a medical school who offered advice to a doctor who passed on, a prognosis or diagnosis to me. They are people in the laundry, probably in another building or another city, washing, the linens. There are people, running an autoclave somewhere. There are people mopping the floors. There are people installing the light fixtures and manning or peopling the parking garage, and painting the signage, and replacing the flowers in the lobby and all that kind of stuff. Many people that I haven't even thought of, and certainly haven't met and don't know their name or their title, but I do thank them all. They made the experience educational, joyful, funny, and manageable, and ultimately, I suppose, successful in that here I am alive. Who knows for how much longer, or what the prognosis is, I still haven't asked. But I've tried my best to take down the names as well as I could all along the way. And, the title. But obviously I missed some of them I didn't know the spelling of. I'll try and append a list to this, in print. So that'll be another thing to do, I suppose. Which I'm grateful for. Some folks I was able to write physical cards to and leave them, but most of them are just passing, and quite a few of these I came to find are folks who, I just met once, and briefly they came in and took my vitals, and I didn't see them again because of their shift, or I was moved, or I was discharged, or maybe I didn't see them because I was asleep and they came in and checked on things. I don't know. So anyway, this is incomplete, and I always knew it would be, but I tried really hard to do my best here. They certainly everybody to a person seemed to have tried very hard to do their very best, including Barely Bear, right, buddy? Who is here with me through every bit of this. So I guess I should start with this sort of the primary team, I suppose, and that would be Dr. Michael Rubinstein, my GP, and his APRN, Cassandra Cotter. They eventually referred me to what would become my, I guess, cancer care team, maybe, and that would be Dr. Stacy Stein, Dr. Haddon Pantel, Dr. Kevin Billingsley, Haddon Jacob Pantel, and Kevin Greg Billingsley, all exceedingly wonderful, rather patient, and deeply effective in terms of the outcomes of the treatments and procedures they offered me. Okay, so I wanted to thank Dr. Ira Leeds. He was on Dr. Pantel's team. Robyn Schiff, Laura McKee, nurses. Tomiya, I'm not sure of the spelling on that, Tomiya. And Anderson was a nurse. Emily Barbieri was a student. Again, I don't know the title, I just know that she was a student, so I assume that means medical student. But I don't know if that's, towards RN or GP or, surgical resident student. I don't really know. Juan Espejo was a nurse. He was on the SWAT team in my ICU. I got ostomy training from Corinne Signore and Lizzie. I'm just kind of updating these notes as I go to see if that will help. Oncological Interventionists, we had Caroline Paduano, who's an LMT, Renee Dickinson, an RN, Melanie Renee Rodriguez, another nurse. We had Inez Millen Townsend, who's a PCA, PCT. Inez was around quite a bit. I felt like I saw her quite regularly, and we would talk about going to St. Anne, Jamaica, and getting to Steve's Bakery. That's her brother Stephen, who spells his name correctly, by the way, and his bakery there in St. Anne. So we kind of dreamed of that together quite a bit in Jamaica. So I'm still planning to go. If I ever make it to Jamaica, Steve's Bakery is on the list. Taylor Weiss was a nurse. Taylor and I talked about her dream of being able to travel and do nursing, which I thought was really powerful. Michael Mazeiko, again, I don't know the pronunciation, Mazeiko, Michael. I remember he was telling me about his wife Kristen, who's a nurse. Aida Mecka was an RN. Moriah Doyon, an RN. Florence Resnick, I remember Florence, an RA. And Sage Russell and Suzzette, both RNs. Suzzette, for example, couldn't get her last name. Didn't see it on the name, what do you call it, the name badge. Sometimes I didn't have my glasses on, or people were moving and working, and I couldn't register, through my lack of lenses, or lack of mental presence, or lack of physical focus due to movement. Myriam Bosquet, who we like to be called Mimi, she was pretty great. And then we met Chukwumaife Eze, an RN, and he was telling me that his name Chukwumaife is in Nigerian means God is intelligent. So I remember that name. We had the PICC team, Sarah Uhlan, I'm not sure if she's a nurse or doctor, what the title is, but Sarah Uhlan, Uhlan. She did a 42 centimeter catheter for the PICC tube for feeding. I had a nephrologist at one point. That was a tough challenge to manage, I suppose, in the ICU. That was Dr. Yourandi Nalifarsadat. Yourandi Nalifarsadat. I remember I had Nurse Mary Frances. She kind of misunderstood that I had a sensible and agreed upon plan for managing my dry mouth, and there's a long miscommunication, and I think she wasn't super happy with me. I certainly wasn't super happy with her, but I could understand her point of view. But I was pretty desperate and I couldn't talk, and I just wanted to suck on a wet rag to get a little bit of moisture in my mouth, but not to swallow, in order to talk. But she was asking me questions, which I couldn't talk, and I didn't have a pen and paper, and I was trying to signal for the water, and I think she thought I was just trying to get a drink, and couldn't explain. I just wanted to be trusted. But we worked around it, and eventually I got a cup, and I wrote on the cup, and I kind of explained to her, and that's how that went. But anyway, sorry, Mary Frances, Nurse Mary Frances. Hopefully you remember me with a bit more kindness than I earned. So I was probably a bit grumpy there. I felt ineffective in my ability to communicate, which is really painful, and I also felt like my intentions were not trusted, which is like a nerve for me. And I can understand her doing her job, but I was really kind of suffering, like tortured suffering at the time. So thank you, Mary Frances, and I'm sorry, Mary Frances. When they retrieved my IVC filter, a Denali IVC filter, we had Alyssa Carotenuto, Barbara De Giacomo, Chantel Valencia, all nurses. We also had Jennifer, Monica, and Dean. I don't know their titles, but Dean and I had a good time sharing some humor, and I think the whole team had a good time sharing some humor about Dean while Dean was in the room. So I feel like we laughed quite a bit through that procedure where they pull out through the jugular a really long line, down towards the hip is where it reaches. Dr. Fabian Galp was the doctor in charge or performing the surgery or procedure. I don't know how we refer to it. And he was assisted by Dr. Taylor Powell. I remember Ginger Hawthorne was a nurse there as well. We also had Maboob, a nurse. We had Jenna Casey, a nurse in patient services. Sherry McNeil, a nurse. Elizabeth Calderoni, who I got to see a number of times. She's on the colorectal team. We had Justin Urefahi, also a nurse. Patricia Decker, a nurse. I remember Sonia. She was telling me about her business, Jesse's Boutique. So you guys might want to check out Jesse's Boutique and support Sonia. So I remember her telling me that her dad and her mom passed, her dad when she was 31 and her mom when she was 13, right? 31, 13. So quite a tough life that Sonia's had for sure. And there she was just trying to make my life better and spread joy in the world through Jesse's Boutique. So thank you, Sonia. And I'm sorry for your suffering, and I'm glad for your glorious ability to ameliorate suffering in others. At one point, I had kind of an emergency to run to Goose Lane Medical Center for a foot problem, and I didn't know if this had to do with the chemo or my blood sugar being thrown off from all the medicines, or if it was a side effect of something that was going on. I thought, I better just go to the emergency room, and maybe this is related to things that I guess apparently it wasn't, but Sam led me in from the lobby, and Tara, pretty sure Tara's who took my vitals. Dr. Justin Belsky is who came in to see me in MPH, although I can say I'm not quite sure what MPH is, but I suppose I could look it up. But Dr. Justin Belsky, who's very, very efficient and not thrown at all, and got me on my way, relieved. Speaking of Goose Lane Medical Center, this was back in November, so this might have been my first CT scan of many. I got to meet Shonda and Keith, Rebecca Gersh in patient services, Maria, who's a nurse, although she goes by Becky G. When I went for a sonogram, I had Tanya Taft, a radiologist. That was in February this year, February 13th. So I'm just scrolling here. Another MRI I went in for, or a MRI I went in for. I had Sarah, Catherine, and Mohammed. And, much like with Dean during the IVC Denali filter retrieval, we all kind of had fun making fun of Mohammed. And I think I just decided he was the one for the jokes. And I thought of a joke while I was in the MRI. And when I came out, I shared the joke with him, and it worked. He laughed. So that was fun to be a part of that. A phlebotomist, or somebody who gave me a phlebotomy, I guess, was Sally Ballantoni. Another ultrasound, this is the second one, was Irina. We had a really nice long conversation while I had the treatment. Nice kind of quiet, dark room, very, very pleasant. Back to Goose Lane for a CT scan in June, at the end of June, June 28th. Sam took care of me, and they had been having some trouble getting the IV in me for a blood draw recently, I think a couple times that week, if I remember. And Sam was just nonplussed and efficient and effective, and he got the first try IV for the contrast, and that went well. That was a different Sam than the Sam who walked me in for the foot issue, also at Goose Lane. This is Sam, who I assume is a radiologist, but I don't know, so I'm not saying. I just said Sam. That's all I got. So when I had my, I think March 7th, my, no, that's not true. It would have been like March 5th, but something like that. I had my IVC procedure, and that's when they're putting in the thing that Dr. Gaup took out. That was Chris Benke, RN, Martha McDougall, RN, James Myers, RN, and James Carilli. And that was overseen or performed by Dr. Manroop Kaur with help from Rebecca Ventura. And I remember being in the room, and I think it was Chris, Martha, and Dr. Kaur, and we had just sort of conversations through the procedure. I wasn't, knocked out. I did that one without sedation. And I remember us talking about, just kind of local places. Somebody was trying to buy a house or looking, I think. And, we were talking about, what's nice in that area, or what's a nice drive, or what's a feature of that part of that town, that sort of thing. It was really enjoyable. Somebody's mowing or something, and I'm not going to close the window, so this is the sound that we get. So then on March 7th was, I think, the big procedure, the sort of the scheduled double, sigmoid colon resection, and when they resect part of the hepatic dome in the liver and reverse the colostomy, so the big one. Mary Zaccarelli did the check-in at the hospital. Really, really nice. I felt like I was the first patient of the day, and she didn't, I don't think, had her coffee or wasn't there, but was nevertheless really pleasant and efficient and kind and helpful and generous. I felt like I was a bit intruding, like they weren't quite ready, but she didn't let me in on that. She just took care of me and was very warm. I remember they were still kind of cleaning the chairs and stuff in the waiting room that was empty. Then we had the admissions check-in. I think Mary Zaccarelli was at the, I think the admissions check-ins was Angela and Peria, Angela Marquez and Peria. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I have to see if I can understand my notes, but Angelica Marquez, I think, was the person without the coffee. I think Mary Zaccarelli is the person who, when you first go in, you get like I'm a guest or a visitor, or just check your ID, something like that, and tell you which floor to go to or which building or wing or whatever. And she would say hi to Barely Bear and give him a visitor badge. So I misspoke there a moment. Rosemarie took my vitals. Dr. Grace Chow, who is Dr. Billingsley's chief resident, saw me. Reese Gesick was a nurse, Gesick. The anesthesiologist was Dr. Veronica Mate. A nurse was Moira. Oh yeah, I remember Moira LeWerk. And I think the last name is Taylor, Jillian Taylor, nurse, saw me there too. I'm just updating my notes as I go. Laura Rain, Amber, both nurses. Josh was there to help. Diana and Anna, both nurses, helped. Beth Capel, nurse. Deshawn wheeled me around on the gurney. Rihanna saw me in the step-down recovery unit. I know she's a nurse, but I didn't catch her last name. So that was Rihanna. Then Nurse Grace Bellavo saw me. Ezekiel Laxina, nurse, saw me. Checking my vitals was a PCA named Emily, Juanita Jones, Jeanette, McLean Judy. She saw me. I don't know if they were all PCAs or not, but I know Emily was. So for PTOT, folks that came in to see me, folks that I tried to have tripled or doubled my expected exercise with them before they saw me on a given day, so that by the time they saw me, I had doubled or tripled what they were there to do already. I couldn't always do, but that was the effort. Was Rob, Jillian Williams, PT, Kim, Paul Bernier, PT, Michaelin, an RN, Liam Mezick, an RN, Jackie checked my vitals. Alexa and Emily were PCAs who walked or wheeled me to the healing garden and allowed me to be walked around there, which was really a special thing to be able to do. It was hard to do. It was hard to get somebody that would come off the floor and do that. but I felt it was good for them to get outside and get a walk and not just be called to 30 different things. And the garden is wonderful and it exists. And I felt like, I think every time I went, I was the only person there besides who was with me. And I wish more people had been there. It would be great to return to the garden and offer something there, a meditation or a qigong or something, for staff or whomever. It's a wonderful thing. People didn't seem all that prepared to bring somebody to the healing garden, even though it was on offer. But I tried my best to insist, that it was part of the day. Naya was an RN. Paula H. brought Poppy, a therapy dog, to visit. So I got to see Poppy for a little bit. I got to see Dr. Michael Mbavore, who came in. He's works with my pulmonologist, Dr. Corwin, Dr. Amy Corwin, who I just saw last week. And boy, what a bright light. I was in pretty bad shape, and I feel like it was early in the morning, but maybe it was in the evening. It was dark, it felt like. And just all of a sudden, Michael, Dr. Mbavore, was there, and just beautiful and warm and gracious and educational, which I so appreciated. And he explained to me I think 3 different types of asthma, 3 different causes for cough, and we talked through medications and so forth. And then he left, and I haven't seen him again. But I finally see his name when I go to the pulmonologist's office, and hope I run into him. But I mean, just really wonderful person to have met, and wonderful professional to have benefited from. Elizabeth Calderoni, who I already mentioned, I believe, Dr. Kelly Olino, Dr. Kevin Schultz, all on the colorectal team. I feel like Kevin came quite a few times. I saw him pretty regularly. Very sort of very, I want to say strong, but I don't mean stern. I just meant it felt good to have him come into the room, like a very strong presence, and I don't just mean physically strong. So I remember Dr. Schultz quite fondly, and we got to see Dr. or the APRN, Elizabeth Calderoni and Kelly Olino quite regularly. Michael Gould is a PA. So the chief researcher, who, I don't know what her title is, but her name is Joanna Hu. And I tell you, she is just the biggest ball of enthusiasm you could ever meet. Like an exploding, neutron star, just a tiny little compact, but explosive and life-giving and warm. Really, 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 really wonderful. Just one of the more powerful personalities you could ever meet. And I remember one time I was walking in the hospital from one place to another, not to see her, to see somebody else about something else, I don't know. And, the hospital is a big place with a lot of people, and I hadn't just seen Joanna Hu in, recently. It had been a couple months or something, and I'm walking from here to there, and she happens to be coming, the other way, in the same hallway. And I saw her, and I was like, I know who that is. I'm like, she's not going to know who I am. Like, I'm not even thinking that. I might say hi, but I'm not going to expect it. And plus, I have a mask on, and I probably look different. I've now been sick for longer. And she just immediately saw me, and we stopped and chatted, even though she was briskly, as you might imagine, she was briskly walking, so probably had somewhere to be. But she stopped and knew who I was. I think she knew my first name, if I'm not mistaken. And we chatted a little bit, and it was delightful. So it really felt all the more like, her sort of attitude was not just a put on. It was authentic. So that was also extra wonderful to have that experience. I think these are just other notes for me here. Let's see. This is Dr. Agrawal. Okay, so that's a different one. Okay, so we're still going. This is a lot of people. And remember, this is not remotely all of the people. And I'm sure I got some of these wrong and I mispronounced them and I missed the chance to get the last name or the title. Or I might have a little bit misremembered and I thought this name was that person who I'm now telling a story about. And again, I apologize. And there's so many more, I don't even know that those jobs or roles exist and that they're instrumental to my having a healthy and wonderful experience through this situation. But I feel like all that I can do, and barely bear too, is to thank sincerely those who I can know to thank by name. And I do thank everybody else, I really do. So in North Haven at 6 Divine Street, I get to see Shannon Bain, a phlebotomist. Most times I go, and even if she's not assigned to me, I often see her and I say hi and we have a quick hello and a chat, and I check in on her family, and she's just yeah, she's pretty wonderful. When I went in to have the, I don't know if you can, maybe you can see, I don't know if you can, probably there's where my port is. If you look carefully, you can actually sort of see the catheter of it kind of going this way. When I had gone in to get the chemo, you go in, you sit in a chair for 6 hours or something, and they pump through the port I just showed you. And then they send you home with more medicine, and it's like attached to sort of this sort of portable pump fanny pack, kind of a messenger bag kind of a thing. And you have to have that for 46 hours, and then you have to go back and they have to disconnect it at that time. And I was in really bad shape. Really, really bad. And I somehow made it there. Not somehow, with the help of Sarah and Greg. But I made it there, and I got up, and I wheelchaired in, and somebody else typed in my stuff to check me in, and I got wheeled up. This is the first time I must have used the elevator. I don't even remember, but I must have. Every other time I make a point of using the stairs. And then once you go upstairs and you check in again, at I guess a nurse's station, I don't know, but there's a window and you check in, and then you find out who's gonna see you, you know. Is it Aaron or Shannon, or Maria or somebody else? Who most often saw me, Anne and Sharon and Maria, and I got a soft spot for Shannon, I guess, and I think because I saw her first, I don't know, but she's just really, everybody's nice, but anyway, I was just in really, really bad shape, and I made it to the place, I made it into the place, I made it to the I think it's the second floor, then I made it through the check-in, and then it turned out that Shannon was going to see me to disconnect the thing. And it was such a relief. I was like, oh, I got Shannon. You know, it's just the luck of the draw, I suppose. And I went in and I could see on her face that I was a lot worse than I thought I was, or a lot worse than I was going to admit, or something. I don't know. And I feel bad now. That's why I'm crying. And I felt bad then, like, oh, like I brought her like a real challenge here. I'm not just somebody coming in saying, here, take some blood and I'll see you in 2 weeks. But they didn't even, I don't know how the disconnect thing went. I don't really remember, but they just called 911. And she took me to the left, and you go down the hall, and to the right is where she does the phlebotomy. You go to the right, and then she's on the left, and but she kind of crossed the hall and brought me into, I think, just like a little empty room, an exam room or something. And then from then on, the whole thing was just crowded with like 17 people just trying to help and trying to get my vitals, which were largely out of range or not discernible. And I remember I kind of feel like I put this problem on Shannon. But so, I didn't intend to do that, of course, but I also felt like, well, at least Shannon's kind of in charge here. I'm sure that she passed me along to somebody else more prepared for that, would be my guess. In that situation, the hierarchies are predetermined, but I felt like, at least I'm in her care. But also, I'm sorry that I did that. Anyway, so I just wanted to make sure that I thanked that Shannon Bain, Maria Wasco, and Aaron Evans, Maisie Ayer is a RN there at Stacy Stein's at Divine Street. There is also Maria Fernandez, who I guess is a phlebotomist, but that's what she did with me, and Stephanie Knott, an RN at Goose Lane. The infusion nurses, going back to Divine Street, were Diana, Homar, Katia Marquez, Morgan Stewart, who, just had a newborn, like a 6-month-old Logan at the time, who I guess would be, 14 months now or so. So Diana, Homar, Katia Marquez, Morgan Stewart, Tanya Ferry, Marissa Finnegan were the infusion nurses, all RNs. And I think in that order, those are who did chemo, sort of, I guess they're the nurse in charge of my actual chemo infusion on that day. So again, part of a team, largely that I didn't know. And each time I was there, I was told who my infusion nurse was. But other people helped. Okay. I remember being there with Diane and Kathy and Krista and Rich, getting chemo, other patients. I'm going on to another list of notes here. So I mentioned Cassandra Cotter, my APRN, at the very top of this. Mary Claire Rowland is the phlebotomist in that office, who is just really, really wonderful. And we just have a laugh and a joke, and she enjoys Barely Bear. And I look forward to seeing her. She's really great. I'm just going to scroll down. I don't know if there's much in the way of names on this set of notes, but since there might be, look at that. I figured I'd scroll down. I should thank, so September 16th was my first consultative appointment with Dr. Christopher Illick in Brantford for my colonoscopy. He didn't perform it because we wanted to do it sooner than his schedule allowed, so I had it performed by a different doctor, but he is who I first saw. Dr. Michael Dorfman performed my colonoscopy, and actually then right afterwards confirmed the cancer before the lab work came through. And then I was on to, meeting Dr. Pantel, for example, who I've already thanked, but I will endlessly thank him. In fact, he seems very uncomfortable with being thanked, so I make an extra point of shaking his hand and kind of holding it firmly whenever I see him and saying, "Thank you for saving my life. That is what you've done. Thank you." Elaine, I think in Dr. Pantel's office, helped schedule my MRI and CT scan for me, which I think was my first set of those. Tammy and Jen were also part of that, who I think work at the Dana building, the Yale Physicians building on Howard Avenue, New Haven. I'm just scrolling down. This is a bunch of medication notes and stuff, but I didn't want to skip those. And so my ctDNA test by Signatera was the patient coordinator is Jordan, who has been quite helpful, and she's arranged to have the different phlebotomists come to the home to draw blood and send in the samples, which are really time sensitive, I guess. So there's been Marilyn and just this morning was Janelle. Came and did phlebotomy, a blood draw for me just this morning. I think that's the end of these notes. Again, there are for certain many, many more that I've missed, but I'll keep doing them. But I did want to share my thanks. And Barely Bear was a big help, so I'd like to thank him too. And he would like to thank all of you, because he was there for every single one of these appointments and meetings. I don't know what the future holds. Nobody does. I haven't gotten a prognosis. Nobody has said I am cured or cancer-free or anything like that, and I haven't asked or pushed for it. I'm just, as ever, trying to do as I'm told and be the best patient for every single person that I meet. Not that I succeed, but that's my aim. I'm trying to meet every single event with humor and humanity, and part of that humanity is trying to get to know at least a little bit those who I'm interacting with, even if it's very, very brief and they're just wheeling me down the hallway and, getting me into a car, because it's not just that. So saying even just is minimizing the important work people are doing. And love alive. Let's press on and educate and be thankful and see how we can pay it forward. Thank you. Love, love, love from Barely Bear, from me, from my family of students. I'm exceedingly grateful, and I'm sorry for my failures to thank everybody properly, but this has been sincere, and I'm grateful. I'm astoundingly grateful. Thank you. Love.